They say a wedding ring only leaves your hand when something breaks, trust, loyalty, or a truth too heavy to carry any longer. So when I found mine buried in the damp soil of a field my husband swore he'd never stepped foot in, the air around me shifted. It felt like the earth itself was whispering a secret I wasn't meant to hear. My name is Lena Hart, and for 9 quiet years I believed my marriage was built on simple, ordinary love, the kind that survives routine, silence, and time. We lived on the edge of a small rural town, where the fields ran wide and the nights carried more wind than voices. My husband, Mark, worked long hours and kept to himself, but I'd never questioned the distance he occupied in his own life. That changed the afternoon I walked through Miller's Field, a place he'd always avoided with a strange, sharp insistence, and felt something cold press against the sole of my shoe. The wind was the first thing I noticed that afternoon, how it moved through Miller's Field like it had somewhere to be. The grass bent in long, tired waves, brushing against my legs as if trying to warn me. I hadn't walked that far out in years, not since Mark told me there was nothing worth seeing past the old fence line. But something pulled me there anyway. A heaviness I couldn't name. A whisper I couldn't locate. And when my heel caught on something cold, something metallic buried just beneath the soil, it felt like the field had finally exhaled a truth it could no longer hold. I remember kneeling slowly, careful not to disturb the quiet settling around me. The field wasn't a place for sudden movements. It had that strange kind of stillness, like an old church where even your breathing feels too loud. The sky hung low, a soft gray curtain rolling across the edge of the world. A storm was somewhere far behind it, humming like an old memory. I pressed my hand into the ground for balance, feeling the dampness cling to my skin. I hadn't planned to come here. Truth is, I'd been trying not to think lately. The house had been too silent in the mornings. Mark left earlier and came home later, always with tired eyes and some excuse about work. I didn't want to push him, not after everything our marriage had already weathered. So I walked. Miles some days. Farther others. Anything to fill the quiet. That's how I ended up in Miller's Field, a place he once told me he couldn't bear to visit. Bad memories, he said. And I let it be. I never asked what kind. But that heaviness, that whisper, it brought me right to the spot where my foot had snagged. As if the land had been waiting. I brushed away the top layer of soil with the side of my shoe. A faint glint flashed, then disappeared again under the shifting dirt. Curiosity was gentle at first. Soft. But it grew sharper the moment I crouched down and reached for it. My fingertips touched metal, smooth, familiar. Too familiar. I dug a little faster now, the earth cool beneath my nails. When I finally pulled it free, the world around me seemed to hush, like the wind itself leaned in. It was a ring. Not just any ring. My wedding ring. The one Mark slid onto my finger 9 years ago, his voice unsteady, his eyes soft with a hope I believed in. I turned it over in my palm. The engraving was worn but unmistakable. L+M, always, always. The same engraving on the ring still sitting in my jewelry drawer at home. My heart stumbled. I looked around, as if the field might offer some explanation. But the land only stared back, quiet, patient. I pressed the ring into my fist. A strange thought passed through me, quiet as breath. This wasn't lost. Someone wanted me to find it. The wind picked up, sweeping through the grass in long shivers. I slipped the ring into my pocket, feeling its weight settle against my thigh, too heavy for something so small. Mark had never come here. That's what he always said. Every time I mentioned Miller's Field, even in passing, a shadow crossed his face. I don't go near that place, he'd tell me. Brings back things I don't want to think about. But then how? How did my ring end up buried here? I stood slowly, brushing the dirt from my knees, watching the horizon where the field met the sky. A flicker of something, movement, caught my eye near the far fence. I froze. Someone stood there. Or I thought they did. A tall figure, still as an old scarecrow, half hidden behind the sway of tall grass. I blinked, and they were gone. A trick of the light, maybe. Or a memory playing itself over the land. But the unease it left behind clung to me, tightening like a thread pulled too close to the skin. Something about all of this. The ring. The field. Mark's aversion to it. It didn't line up. Not anymore. A question bloomed quietly, steady as a heartbeat. What else hadn't he told me? I took one last look at the spot where the soil lay disturbed, a small patch of earth breathing fresh air for the first time in years. Then I turned toward home. The ring in my pocket felt warmer now, like it had absorbed the heat of my skin, or the truth of its own story. Every step I took seemed to echo louder than the last, the field's silence pressing heavily against my back. By the time I reached the old fence line, the sky had darkened, folding into a deeper gray. I paused, letting the wind brush past me like a warning. Something had been buried out there. And whatever it wasn't finished with me yet. The house feels different when I step inside, like it's holding its breath. There's a thin trail of afternoon light slipping across the hallway floor, catching dust in the air, making everything look softer than it feels. I closed the door quietly, almost too quietly, and let the silence settle around me. Mark doesn't hear me at first. He's at the kitchen counter, shoulders slumped, moving his hands in that slow, distracted way he does when his mind is somewhere else entirely. For a moment, I just stand there, watching him move through the house like he isn't fully in his own skin, and wondering what part of him I've never really known. I walk farther in, letting my footsteps fall soft against the worn wooden floor. The boards creak under me, small, familiar sounds that feel louder in a house this quiet. Mark finally looks up, surprised to see me home early. "Oh, hey," he says, rubbing the back of his neck. "Didn't expect you yet." He smiles, but not with his eyes. His eyes look tired, the kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix. The air between us feels different. Not tense exactly, just heavy. Like a room that remembers something the people inside it have tried to forget. I set my bag down, watching him open and close a cabinet as if searching for something he doesn't really need. His movements are slow, uncertain, almost rehearsed. "You're home early," he adds, voice drifting. "I needed some air," I tell him. "Just wanted to walk a little." He nods. His hands keep moving, picking up a glass, putting it down, wiping crumbs from a counter that's already clean. I've seen him like this before, when he's carrying something unsaid. When he's choosing silence over truth. The ring presses against my pocket with every breath I take. Warm. Heavy. A secret sitting between us like a third presence. And all I can think is, who put it there? I lean against the counter, keeping my voice light, almost careless. "How was your day?" He shrugs. "Long, same old." He doesn't look at me when he says it. That's the first crack. His voice is steady, but his shoulders shift just slightly, as if a part of him flinches at being noticed. I watch him pour water into a glass. The stream runs steady at first, then wavers when I speak again. I pretend not to notice. "Did you go by the Turner property today?" I ask. "No," he answers too quickly. Second crack. I keep my tone soft, letting the silence between questions stretch just enough to unsettle. "What about Miller's field?" The water overflows the glass. A slow spill. He curses under his breath, setting the pitcher down with more force than he means to. And then he looks up at me, really looks. There's something sharp flickering behind his eyes. Something he tries to hide just as quickly. "Miller's field," he repeats, like he needs to hear it twice before he can swallow it down. I keep my expression gentle. "I walked near it today." His whole body tightens, not visibly, not dramatically, just enough for me to feel it. A shift of breath. A stiffening of shoulders. A glance that doesn't know where to land. He forces a laugh, thin as paper. "You know I don't go near that place." The same line he's told me for years. The same line he thinks still works. I nod slowly, watching the way his fingers fidget with the edge of the countertop. "But why again?" I ask softly. "You never really told me." His jaw tightens just barely. "I told you." "Bad memories." "From what?" He looks away, toward the window, toward the yard, toward anything that isn't my eyes. "Just childhood stuff," he mutters. "I don't want to think about it." He picks up the glass again as if the conversation is over, taking a slow sip that doesn't hide the tremor in his hand. I let the silence hold him for a moment. Sometimes silence tells the truth faster than questions do. So you definitely haven't been there since you were a kid? I ask, voice barely above a breath. He nods quickly. Too quickly. Of course not. His eyes flicker back to me, searching for something reassurance, maybe. An escape. What's with all the questions? He asks, a smile tugging at his mouth but never reaching his face. I give him the answer he needs, not the one I'm carrying. Just curious, I say, shrugging lightly. I haven't been out that way in a long time. His shoulders drop an inch. Relief. He thinks the moment has passed. But the ring in my pocket tells me otherwise. We move around each other in the kitchen, quiet, careful, two people occupying the same space, but circling different truths. Mark hums to himself as he puts dishes away, like a man trying to sound normal. I watch him from the side of my eye, watching the tension fade from his posture inch by inch as he convinces himself I didn't notice anything. The ring presses against my leg with every small movement I make, warm now, almost pulsing. A reminder. A question. A warning. He dries his hands, glances at me, and offers a soft smile. The kind meant to close a door. But all I can think is, if he hasn't been near that field in decades, why does the name still make him flinch? The bedroom is quiet, too quiet for the hour. A single lamp throws a pool of yellow light across the dresser, catching dust motes drifting like tiny lanterns in the air. I kneel slowly on the carpet, listening to the faint hum of the fridge from the kitchen downstairs. My fingers hover over the drawer handle. I've opened this drawer hundreds of times, always the same rhythm. Small boxes, folded cloth, the silver chain he bought me one Christmas. Tonight, it feels heavier, as if something is waiting. I pull it open, careful not to let the hinge creak. And the first thing I see makes my breath catch. The ring lies there, gleaming softly in the lamplight. I reach for it instinctively. My fingers close around the smooth metal. But something is off. The engraving catches my eye. It's slightly different. The letters aren't as worn. The curves of the L and the M look too perfect. Too new. My pulse quickens. I pull the other ring from my pocket, the one I found in the field earlier, and place it beside the one in the drawer. The difference is undeniable. One is older, worn down by years. The metal softened, edges rounded, a small nick near the engraving. The other looks like it was made yesterday. A cold thread snakes up my spine. I sit back on my heels, staring at the two rings. Why would Mark replace my ring without telling me? Did he mean to hide something? Or was it some kind of warning? The bedroom feels smaller now. The walls press in, carrying the quiet weight of years of unspoken truths. Even the lamp seems brighter, exposing everything I've tried to ignore. The creak of the floorboards, the dust lining the corners, the faint scent of his cologne lingering in the air. I tuck the field ring back into my pocket, letting its warmth contrast with the cold perfection of the one in the drawer. And suddenly, the room feels like a place I don't belong. I lift the drawer slightly, as if moving it will reveal something hidden beneath. The silver chain, a few mismatched earrings, a pressed flower from a forgotten bouquet, all unchanged. Only the ring is different. Only the ring carries this quiet betrayal. I trace the engraving on both rings with my fingertip, letting the metal speak in the way only objects can. The older one is mine. I know it in the way my fingers remember every tiny dent. The newer one, a copy. A mimic. I imagine him placing it here, like a staged scene. His smile, thin, practiced. His eyes careful. Did he think I wouldn't notice? Did he think I'd never compare? I set the rings side by side on the dresser. The older ring catches the light and glints like it's laughing quietly at the audacity of the other. The newer ring looks almost arrogant in its flawlessness. I remember that day, the day he slid the original onto my finger. His hand shook, the way they always do when he's nervous. Did he ever feel this same nervousness now, hiding the truth from me? The lamp flickers, a soft, tired glow. I hear the house breathe around me. The settling of the wood, the faint hum from the kitchen, the distant creak of the front door swinging in the wind. Everything in the room is still, except my mind racing, picking apart possibilities. What is he hiding? I slide onto the edge of the bed, staring down at the rings. I can feel the weight of the moment pressing in from all sides. The air smells faintly of the night, cool, dry, sharp against my skin. My chest tightens. Why would he replace it? Was it guilt? Shame? Or a secret I'm not meant to see? I close my eyes for a second, letting the darkness behind my lids stretch. I remember the field, the chill of the earth against my fingers, the whisper of something buried. It wasn't just the ring. It was the story it carried. I set the new ring back in the drawer with deliberate care. The drawer closes with a soft click, like a door sealing a secret. I sit there, hands folded in my lap, listening to the quiet that fills the bedroom. Everything is still, but nothing feels right. I can feel his presence even when he's not here. The room remembers him. The drawer remembers him. Even the rings remember him. And I realize this is no accident. He wants something to remain hidden. Or perhaps he's trying to rewrite what I already know. A shiver runs down my spine. And I can't tell if it's fear or anticipation. I stand, brushing imaginary dust from my jeans, pretending the drawer is just a drawer. The rings lie quietly now, one hiding its history, one holding it openly. I step toward the window, resting my hands on the sill. The moon spills pale light across the yard, highlighting shadows that feel sharper tonight. I press my palm to the glass, feeling the cold seep in. Somewhere out there, secrets drift like the wind, too small to see but heavy enough to carry. I tuck the older ring back into my pocket, letting its warmth anchor me. And I know one thing, I have questions now that can't wait. Because if he replaced it, then what else has he been hiding? The night hums quietly around me. And I feel the weight of all the stories yet to come. The field is quiet, except for the soft rustle of tall grass brushing against itself. The sun is low, spilling orange and gray across the horizon, and the shadows stretch long like fingers across the ground. I step carefully over the uneven earth, boots sinking slightly into the damp soil. Somewhere, a bird calls, then silence. The wind moves differently here, carrying a chill I didn't expect. And that's when I see him. A figure at the far fence line. Thin. Hunched. Watching me. He doesn't move. Not yet. But his presence presses against the quiet, like the field itself has shifted just to make room for him. I pause, letting the air fill my lungs, slow and shallow. The field is wide, stretching farther than I remember, the grass tall enough to hide most of what lies beneath. The light bends oddly over the ground, making the fence posts long and crooked in the dim glow. My heart beats too loud, too fast. I remind myself to breathe. The ring in my pocket presses warmly against my thigh. I can feel it there. A tether. A reminder of why I'm here. I take a slow step forward. Then another. Each footfall soft, careful. The man doesn't move. Just watches. A shadow stitched into the landscape. The wind lifts my hair across my face, brushing cold against my cheeks. I push it behind my ear, pretending I'm calm. I pretend this is normal. But the hair on my arm stands anyway. Somewhere deep, an instinct I can't name whispers. Pay attention. Watch him. Don't look away. I grip the ring in my pocket, as if it will tell me what to do. As if it can answer the question that's settled in my chest. Why is he here? I step closer, boots brushing the tips of the grass, leaving small impressions behind. The man doesn't flinch. Not even a twitch. I stop a few yards away, letting the distance stretch between us like an unspoken rule. He tilts his head slightly, as if acknowledging my presence without speaking. His silhouette is thin, almost fragile, hunched forward like he's carrying something too heavy to name. I take another step. Then another. And suddenly, he's gone. Vanished into the tall grass as if he were never there. My chest tightens. I scan the field. Every fence post. Every tuft of grass. Nothing moves except the wind and the faint sway of weeds in its path. A chill slides down my spine, deep into my bones. I crouch slightly, peering into the swaying grass, imagining him somewhere just out of sight. Was it real? Or my imagination playing tricks after all I've discovered? The ring presses against my pocket. I pull it out briefly, holding it in my hand, letting the metal warm against my skin. And I wonder, is someone else watching me? Someone else keeping track of what I've found? I walk slowly along the edge of the field, circling near the fence line. The air is colder here, carrying the scent of wet earth and something faintly metallic. Each step makes the grass whisper, soft and secretive, like it's sharing stories it doesn't want me to hear. I stop. Listen. A crow caws somewhere far off, sharp and sudden, echoing across the empty space. I shiver. I realize the field feels different now. It isn't just land. It's a place alive with memory, with secrets. I glance back at the spot where I thought I saw him. Nothing. Only the fence, crooked and gray. Only the grass, swaying lazily. I drop to my knees, fingers brushing the damp earth, as if I could feel his presence buried somewhere between the roots and soil. Why would anyone be here, watching me? The thought circles in my mind. The ring. The field. The man who vanished as I approached. It presses against me, heavy and insistent. Something isn't finished. I know it without knowing exactly why. The sky is folding into darker shades, the last light clinging stubbornly to the horizon. I rise, boots damp, hair sticking to the back of my neck. I have to leave, but the unease sticks with me, coiling quietly in the pit of my stomach. I step back toward the path leading out of the field, leaving footprints in the soft earth. The tall grass whispers behind me, restless, secretive. I glance over my shoulder once more. Empty. Nothing. But the memory of him lingers. A shape at the fence. A shadow that disappears before it should. I pull the ring from my pocket again, fingers curling around it, holding it close. The metal is warm. A reminder of what I found. A reminder that the field doesn't give up its secrets easily. The wind carries a faint chill against my cheeks. I take a deep breath. And I know, without being told, that someone else is out there. Watching. Waiting. And my life has shifted just enough to notice it. The attic smells of dust and old wood. Sunlight slices through a single window, catching particles in the air like tiny suspended stars. Boxes are stacked unevenly, leaning against each other, whispering under the weight of time. I lift one carefully, the cardboard crinkling under my hands. A forgotten scarf slips from the edge, brushing my wrist like a ghost. And then I see it, tucked between yellowed papers and a broken music box. A photograph, edges curled, soft from age. I pull it out gently, my fingers brushing the surface as if the paper might crumble beneath my touch. And for a second, I forget to breathe. The photo shows Mark as a boy, maybe 16, standing in Miller's field. The grass is tall, bending lightly in the breeze. He's smiling, really smiling, open and unguarded. Not the careful man I married, not the one who stiffens at the mention of this place. Beside him, a young woman I don't recognize leans close, laughing. Her hair catches the sun. Her eyes. I can't see clearly, but something in the way she tilts her head toward him makes the world in this photograph feel alive. I kneel on the attic floor, letting the photograph rest in my lap. The air smells thick with dust, old paper, and something faintly metallic. I can feel the weight of the past pressing down. The floorboards creak softly beneath me, like the house remembers every secret it has held. The back of the photo has handwriting. Neat, looping letters. For Mark always. And a date I recognize, years before I ever met him. A chill runs down my spine, cold as the attic air. The laughter frozen in the image echoes quietly against the walls. And suddenly, I feel smaller than the space around me, like I'm intruding on something sacred and forbidden. Who is she? I trace the outline of their faces with my fingertip. Mark's smile, unguarded. The young woman's gaze, full of something he never shows me. It feels impossible. I drop the photo beside me and start rifling through boxes, careful but desperate. Old letters. Birthday cards. A few school trophies. Nothing. Everything in these boxes is ordinary. Until it isn't. I pause, hands trembling slightly. The photograph waits there as if daring me to ask questions I'm not ready for. Questions about promises I didn't know existed. Questions about a life before me, a life that seems to haunt him still. I lean back, letting the sunlight catch my hair. The shadows in the attic stretch long, making the boxes look like walls closing in. I hold the photo closer, feeling the rough edges against my palm. The words on the back repeat themselves in my mind, for Mark always. Always. My chest tightens. The ring in my pocket presses against me now, hot with remembered weight. I press it, feeling both comfort and alarm. If someone else loved him enough to write those words, what does that make me? I don't speak. The attic is still, but my mind hums with questions that have no answers yet. I sit cross-legged, staring at the photo like it could explain itself. I notice details now I hadn't before, the tilt of his shoulder, the way her hand brushes his arm. Moments captured that speak of closeness, of joy, of trust. All things he guards fiercely with me. I set the photo on the floor, scanning the room again. Everything is covered in a thin film of dust. Boxes stacked too high. Forgotten trinkets. And yet the photograph is alive in a way the attic cannot be. I imagine him here, years ago, laughing with her. The thought hits me harder than the dust settling around my legs. I see him in a new light, vulnerable, open, human in a way I've rarely seen. I touch the photograph again, soft, almost afraid of breaking it. The weight of betrayal presses down, not the sharp sting of anger, but the slow, sinking ache of discovery. How much has he hidden? How many lives, how many moments have existed outside my knowledge? I hold the photo to my chest. A quiet, desperate question whispers through me. Who is she? And why did he never tell me about her? The attic feels smaller now, the shadows longer, the light dimmer. I know I can't stay here forever. But I can't leave either, not yet. Not with this secret in my hands. I rise slowly, careful not to disturb the boxes beneath me. The photo is still in my hand, edges soft from age, corners curling. The attic air is thick with dust, carrying a silence that feels older than the house itself. I press the photograph to my chest one last time, feeling the weight of it against my skin. Outside, the wind brushes the roof, a whisper through the eaves. It feels like the field is breathing with me, reminding me that nothing stays buried forever. I tuck the photo carefully into my bag, letting it lie against the warmth of my thigh. The ring presses against my pocket as well, heavy and insistent. And I know, deep down, that this is only the beginning. There are stories here I haven't heard. Secrets he has kept. And someone I've never met, who existed long before me. The attic waits, silent. And so do the answers. The shop smells of old wood and lavender polish. Sunlight falls in thin beams through dusty windows, catching the motes that float lazily in the air. I push the door open, and it creaks just enough to announce me. The bell above the door rings, soft and hesitant. Inside, shelves groan under the weight of jars, trinkets, and faded photographs. Time seems to have settled here, thick as the dust on the counter. I place the photograph on the glass top, edges curling slightly. The shopkeeper looks up. Her eyes meet mine, then drop to the photo. Her lips press thin. And the silence that follows is heavier than the wood around us. The air feels tighter now, heavier, like it's holding its breath. I stand just inside the counter, waiting for her to speak. The shop smells faintly sweet, but there's an undercurrent of something older, something that tastes like memory and caution. She picks up the photograph, turning it slowly in her hands. Her fingers linger on the edges, careful, almost reverent. Her eyes don't leave mine, and I can see her thinking. I can see the hesitation, the small tremor of something unspoken. Finally, she says the name. Rhea Collins. Her voice is quiet, almost too quiet, and I hear the weight behind it. I repeat it under my breath. Rhea Collins. The letters taste strange on my tongue, like something I wasn't meant to know. Then she adds the detail that makes the world tilt under my feet. She disappeared. The summer this photo was taken. I feel my throat tighten. My hands curl into fists at my sides, cold against my jeans. The photograph seems heavier now. I press my lips together, trying to make sense of the timing, the story, the years of silence. I want to ask more, to understand what she knows. But the shopkeeper doesn't offer more. Her gaze is steady, wary, as if speaking further might awaken something better left sleeping. I take a step closer, letting my fingers hover above the photo. The glass counter reflects my face in fragments, my eyes, my clenched jaw, my hands hovering, trembling slightly. Do you remember her? I ask softly, voice almost swallowed by the shelves around us. She hesitates, then nods slowly. Everyone remembered Rhea. She was bright, always smiling, laughed too loud, ran too fast. Everyone loved her. Her words carry weight. I imagine her now, the young woman in the photograph, sunlight catching her hair, the field alive around her. And I imagine Mark there too, laughing freely, open, as if nothing in the world could touch him. A version of him I have never met. The shopkeeper lowers her gaze, voice softer now, tremulous. But she went missing. Just like that. Nobody knew where. The summer of '92. Some say she ran away, some say she pauses, leaving the thought unfinished. The unfinished sentence lingers, heavy in the air. I press my fingers to the photograph again, as if I can feel the summer heat, the laughter, the fear all captured in the edges of the paper. A thread of something, betrayal, confusion, fear, twists in my chest. Mark never told me. Mark never mentioned Rhea Collins. And now, the weight of years and secrets presses against me, cold and heavy. I leave the photograph on the counter, careful, like setting down a fragile truth. The shop smells stronger now, old wood, dust, faint lavender, and it makes the tension in my chest feel thicker, almost tangible. Why would he never tell me? I whisper to myself, barely audible. Her eyes flick up at me, cautious, almost sad. I don't know, she says softly. You'd have to ask him. Her words settle over me, cold and final. I feel the heat of anger and fear rise in my chest, then retreat into a tight knot of unease. I leave the shop slowly, my footsteps muted on the wooden floor. Outside, the sun is lower now, stretching long shadows across the street. The world feels quieter, smaller, as if it's holding its breath for what I might discover next. The photograph sits in my mind like a stone in my chest. Rhea Collins. Disappeared. The summer Mark smiled freely in Miller's Field. I imagine Mark's face as a teenager. I imagine the open joy, the secret kept hidden. And I wonder what else he has buried under the years we've spent together. The air outside carries a chill, brushing my hair across my face. I tuck my hands into my pockets, gripping the warmth of the ring there. It feels small, almost insignificant against the weight of what I now know. I walk the few blocks home slowly, the photograph heavy in my mind though not in my hands. The town is quiet, the streets bathed in late afternoon gold. A faint breeze carries the smell of earth and grass, drifting in from the outskirts where the fields begin. I clutch the ring in my pocket, warmth against my skin, and wonder about the secrets Mark has carried, the stories he has buried. Rhea Collins. Her name feels like a shadow, trailing me quietly, insistent, impossible to ignore. I know the questions aren't finished. Not by a long shot. And something in me tightens, preparing for the discoveries yet to come. The town hums quietly around me. And I can feel the weight of all the years pressing against the quiet, waiting for me to unravel them. The kitchen light is warm, soft, spilling in circles across the wooden floor. Outside, the wind brushes against the windows, faint and restless. I sit at the table, the ring in my pocket pressing against my palm, heavy and insistent. Mark moves around the kitchen quietly, the scrape of his shoes against the floorboards sounding louder than usual. He hums, though off-key, and I watch the way his hands linger on the counter. I take a deep breath, steadying myself. It's just a question, I tell myself. A small one. But already, the air feels taut, ready to snap. I sip my tea slowly, watching him arrange plates and cups as though the act will anchor him. He doesn't notice my eyes on him, and maybe that's what makes it worse. The kitchen smells faintly of lemon polish and bread from earlier, ordinary and safe. But the ordinary feels fragile tonight, like glass balanced on the edge of the counter. I place my cup down carefully, letting it settle on the saucer. I frame the conversation in my mind. Gentle, curious, casual. Mark, I begin, voice soft, almost casual. He looks up, eyes meeting mine briefly before darting away. I was looking through my jewelry earlier, I say slowly, letting the words float. The ring. The old one. His hands pause mid-motion, fingers curling slightly as though he's holding more than the knife in his hand. He swallows, glancing at the back door as though it might answer the questions better than he can. Something small, almost imperceptible, shifts in him. A twitch in the corner of his eye. A tightening of his jaw. And I realize immediately that this simple question has touched a deeper current, one I didn't expect to find. I thought it was mine, I continue softly. I didn't realize there were two. He swallows again, hand trembling slightly as he sets the knife down. His fingers brush the counter, lingering for a moment, before he grips the edge like it's an anchor. I thought you might like something nicer, he says finally, voice low. His words are careful, rehearsed, but not quite enough to cover the tremor in his hands. Something that fits better, I guess. I nod slowly, pretending to accept it, even as my pulse presses insistently against my chest. The ring in my pocket feels warmer now, almost alive against my skin. I watch him retreat into himself, shoulders rounding slightly, gaze flicking toward the back door again. It's a glance that says more than words ever could. Memories, ghosts, secrets, something hidden in that doorframe, something he doesn't want me to see. I stay quiet, letting the silence stretch. The clock ticks softly in the background, ordinary and relentless. The wind shifts outside, brushing against the window pane like fingers tracing the edge of the house. And in that quiet, I feel the old ring in my pocket burn with the weight of the unspoken. Where did the old one go? I ask, finally, gentle, measured. It's not an accusation. Not yet. Just curiosity. His hands shake visibly now, fingers tightening and releasing as though the counter might answer for him. He opens his mouth, closes it again. I don't remember exactly, he mutters, eyes darting again toward the back door, like the memory is standing there, waiting. Something in the air thickens. The ordinary kitchen feels smaller, the light dimmer, the silence louder. I hold his gaze as best I can, soft but unwavering. He looks away, swallowing, glancing at the floor, then the door, then back at me. The vulnerability in him, the sudden, raw human fragility, is something I've never seen. It's startling. It makes the ring in my pocket feel heavier still. A simple question, but it has unraveled him, peeled back years of careful composure. And I realize, what seems ordinary, what seems safe, has always been built on careful omissions. He exhales, small and shaky. I wanted you to have it, he whispers finally. His voice carries more than comfort. There's fear there. And maybe something else, regret, guilt, or simply the weight of things left unspoken for far too long. I leave the question there, unsaid beyond what is necessary. The kitchen is quiet again, except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the distant whistle of wind outside. He returns to arranging the table silently, hands still trembling slightly. I feel the old ring burn softly in my pocket, heavy with the truth we haven't named. A small, ordinary object holding something enormous, something years in the making. I sip my tea slowly, letting the warmth settle against my chest. Mark doesn't look at me, but I see the tension lingering in his shoulders, the eyes that keep glancing to the past instead of me. And I know, quietly, that this is only the beginning. A single question has cracked open the careful life we've built, and I can feel the edges of what's hidden waiting to be revealed. The evening stretches long, soft shadows crawling along the walls. And I hold the ring in my pocket, pressed against my palm, knowing the next answer will change everything. I leave the question there, unsaid beyond what is necessary. The kitchen is quiet again, except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the distant whistle of wind outside. He returns to arranging the table silently, hands still trembling slightly. I feel the old ring burn softly in my pocket, heavy with the truth we haven't named. A small, ordinary object holding something enormous, something years in the making. I sip my tea slowly, letting the warmth settle against my chest. Mark doesn't look at me, but I see the tension lingering in his shoulders, the eyes that keep glancing to the past instead of me. And I know, quietly, that this is only the beginning. A single question has cracked open the careful life we've built, and I can feel the edges of what's hidden waiting to be revealed. The evening stretches long, soft shadows crawling along the walls. And I hold the ring in my pocket, pressed against my palm, knowing the next answer will change everything. The living room is quiet, shadows stretching long across the walls from the lamp in the corner. Mark sits on the edge of the sofa, fingers drumming lightly on his knees, eyes fixed on nothing. I stand by the window, watching the last light of day fade across the rooftops, brushing my fingers against the glass like I'm trying to hold it still. The air smells faintly of evening rain and worn upholstery. I feel the ring in my pocket, a familiar weight that presses against my skin. It reminds me of the field, the photograph, the questions I've been too polite to ask directly. Tonight, I decide, the half-truths end. I need the full story, even if it hurts. I sit down across from him, careful not to let the chair scrape too loudly against the floor. The room hums with quiet tension, the kind that fills spaces when words are waiting, heavy with restraint. Mark doesn't meet my eyes. Instead, he traces the seams of the sofa cushions with his fingertips, slow and deliberate. I watch him, listening to the small sounds, the faint creak of floorboards, the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, the soft whisper of wind against the windows. I need to know, I say finally, soft but firm. The words float between us, fragile and yet unyielding. About the field. About Rhea. About the ring. His shoulders stiffen. A flicker of something, fear, guilt, hesitation, crosses his face. He inhales slowly, as if trying to draw courage from the quiet room. And then he says it. I used to go there, often, his voice low, deliberate. Back when I was a teenager. But I stopped. After something tragic happened. I nod, silent, letting the words settle. Something tragic. Not explained. Not expanded. Just enough to sting, just enough to make the room feel smaller, the shadows heavier. I shift in my seat, careful, letting my hands rest in my lap. Tragic? I ask softly, not accusing, just curious, desperate for a clue. He hesitates. His fingers flex and relax on his knees. I don't want to go into it, he murmurs. I want to protect you from old wounds. Things that shouldn't touch your life now. The weight of his half-truth presses against me like a hand over my chest. I swallow, feeling the heat rise to my cheeks. My patience thins. The soft veil of normalcy in our home starts to tear at the edges. I let the silence stretch a moment, listening to the subtle creaks of the house. The old sofa sighs under his weight, the wind rattles a window pane, and the room feels alive with what is left unsaid. I reach for the ring in my pocket, letting the metal press into my palm. The touch anchors me. A trivial object, yet carrying the weight of decades, of secrets, of unspoken fear. I can handle it, I say softly, steady, trying to bridge the distance in the space between us. I need the truth, Mark. Not half-lies. Not shields. He exhales slowly, gaze flicking briefly to the window, to the fading light outside. I can see him weighing it, the struggle to protect versus the pull of confession. Finally, he meets my eyes. The first time tonight. There's a raw vulnerability there, a trembling that's not just in his voice anymore. It's in his posture, the tremor of his hands resting on his knees. I shouldn't have left things like this, he whispers. I went to the field, after she disappeared. Rhea. That summer. I thought maybe I could find her. But it was bad. Worse than I imagined. Something I can't take back. His voice falters. The words hang between us unfinished, like smoke curling into the ceiling. I feel the old ring burn against my skin, as if it knows the story before I do. He shakes his head, running a hand through his hair, eyes glistening faintly. I wanted to protect you, he says again, softer, almost pleading. From the pain I carried, from the mistakes, the things I wish I hadn't seen. The room feels suspended. The shadows stretch further, the last light dying in the corners. And I understand, just a little, the depth of what he has buried all these years. But understanding doesn't fill the emptiness. It only sharpens the edges, makes me feel the hollow where trust and knowledge used to live. I know now that the ring, the field, Rhea, they are all threads in a story that has always been tangled, waiting for me to unravel it. I sit quietly, letting his confession settle in the room, thick and unmovable. The wind outside presses against the windows, a soft, insistent reminder of the world beyond our walls. Mark buries his face in his hands. I can hear his heartbeat through the quiet room, fast, uncertain, human. The ring in my pocket presses against my palm, heavy with questions, with years of silence. A small, tangible piece of what has been hidden, now bridging the gap between past and present. I inhale slowly. There's no anger yet, no accusation, just the weight of the truth stretching across the space between us. And I know, quietly, that the story is far from over. The field, the photograph, the old ring, they are all pieces waiting to fall into place. And the next discovery will demand answers I'm not sure I'm ready for. The sun is just a thin line on the horizon, brushing the tops of Miller's field in pale gold. Dew clings to the grass, heavy on my shoes, wet and cold against my skin. The air smells of damp earth and morning chill, a quiet that presses against the ears. I pause at the edge of the field, the wind brushing my hair, and feel a strange tug in my chest. Something is waiting here. I don't know what exactly, but the instinct feels urgent, insistent. A whisper of the past brushing against the present. I take a careful step forward. Then another. The field seems endless, empty, but I know better. The grass bends under my feet, slick and glistening with dew. Each step feels louder than it should, each crunch of the earth carrying a strange significance. I remember Mark's words from the night before, his confessions about the field, the tragedy, and Rhea. They swirl in my mind, heavy and unresolved. The horizon blushes pink and gold. I scan the field slowly, instinct guiding my gaze, until I see it, near the tree line, a small patch of soil pressed down in a circular shape. It seems ordinary at first, but something about it feels deliberate, like it's been waiting for me. I kneel, my knees pressing into damp grass, hands brushing against the earth. The soil is soft, pliable. I notice a faint indentation, almost like someone knelt there recently. The wind shifts, carrying with it the scent of soil and the faint rustle of leaves. A shiver runs down my spine. I dig with my fingers, slow and careful, peeling back layers of earth that feel older than this morning yet fresh somehow. My hands strike something solid, a box, small and wooden, roughened by soil and time. I pull it out slowly, brushing away clinging dirt, careful not to disturb what lies inside. The box is unremarkable, yet it carries an energy, a weight that presses against my palms. I open it with trembling fingers. Inside rests a faded ribbon, brittle and yellowed. A broken necklace, the chain snapped as though hurriedly removed. And a photograph, folded gently, edges frayed. I unfold it and see her Rhea, smiling at the camera, the sun catching her hair, the joy on her face unguarded and alive. On the back, carved deep into the paper, are the initials MT. Mark's initials. My heartbeat thunders in my ears. I stare at the photograph as though the truth is etched into the fibers, waiting to be recognized. The broken necklace glints faintly, catching the morning light. The ribbon smells faintly of age, of memory, of something left behind deliberately. I sit back on my heels, staring at the small collection, feeling both the weight of discovery and the sharp edge of questions it brings. Why now? Why buried here, hidden in the soft soil of the field that holds so many secrets? I press my fingers to the photograph, tracing the curve of Rhea's smile. Her eyes, bright and open, seem to look at me directly. And I feel it, an urgent, aching truth that I can't ignore. The broken necklace feels like a message. The ribbon, delicate and fragile, like someone wanted to preserve a fragment of her here, in secret. And the initials. Mark. The connection is undeniable, impossible to overlook. I lean back against the damp earth, letting the wind whip across my face. The field stretches around me, empty and silent, yet alive with memory and shadow. I feel a cold thread tighten in my chest, the same thread I felt when I found my ring, when I uncovered the photograph in the attic. Everything is tied together, carefully, deliberately, as though someone, or some memory, has been waiting for me to find it. Questions circle me like the wind. Why bury this now? Why leave these fragments, these remnants of a life paused, hidden, and forgotten? I clutch the photograph tightly, the broken necklace tangled between my fingers, the ribbon brushing my wrist. The sun rises higher, spilling warmth across the field, but the light does not comfort me. It only illuminates the weight of what has been hidden. And I know, with quiet certainty, that finding this box has changed everything. I sit there a long moment, letting the wind tug at my hair and the morning chill seep into my clothes. The field is silent, the birds not yet awake, the grass swaying gently around me. The box rests on the ground between my knees, the photograph and relics inside heavy with meaning. I press the ring in my pocket as if to anchor myself to what is real, tangible, my own history and pain. Somewhere deep in the field, hidden from sight, lies a story that was waiting for me all along. And now it is awake. The past is no longer buried quietly beneath the soil. It presses against me, demanding recognition, understanding, answers. I rise slowly, careful with the box, eyes scanning the horizon. Somewhere, Mark's secrets wait, and I know the next step, confrontation, explanation, truth, is coming. The field holds its breath. And I step forward, carrying its weight with me. The kitchen is quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. Even the sunlight feels hesitant, spilling in soft gold across the linoleum floor. I place the wooden box between us on the table, fingers lingering on the edges as though touching memory itself. Mark's eyes flick to it, then away, a shadow crossing his face. The color drains slowly from his cheeks, leaving him pale and brittle. I watch him, still, quietly, waiting for the first tremor of truth to show. The air feels heavier than usual, thick with anticipation, with grief, with secrets long buried. And I realize this moment is fragile, the kind that can splinter everything we've built in a single breath. I slide the box closer to him, and the wood creaks softly against the tabletop. The photograph, the ribbon, the broken necklace, each artifact pressed between us like a silent accusation. Mark sits across from me, his hands clasped tightly, knuckles white. I see the faint tremor in his fingers as he breathes slowly, deliberately, trying to anchor himself. The kitchen smells faintly of old coffee and toasted bread, everyday scents made strange by tension. I study his face, tracing lines I know too well. The familiar curve of his jaw, the way his eyes catch the sunlight, now shadowed by something heavier. He keeps his gaze down at the table, at the box, as if the contents might bite. I wonder if he even knows the depth of the weight he carries. I feel my pulse thrum in my ears, my hand brushing over the hidden ring in my pocket. A mix of fear and curiosity courses through me, quiet and insistent. I don't speak immediately. I wait. The silence stretches. Finally, he exhales a long, shuddering breath and lifts his eyes to mine, raw and unguarded for a fleeting moment. I buried it, he says, voice low, almost breaking. The words hang in the air, tremulous, fragile. I watch him lean back, the chair scraping faintly against the floor. Rhea, she was my first love, he continues, hands ringing in his lap. She vanished after we argued here, in the field. I don't know what happened, but I couldn't. I couldn't let it go. The tremor in his voice is subtle, but it reaches me, stirring a mix of sorrow and confusion. He tells me about the keepsakes, the ribbon, the broken necklace, the photograph, and how he buried them out of grief, out of guilt, out of something heavier than words. He insists he never harmed her, never intended harm, only that the memory haunted him. I trace the edge of the photograph in the box, Rhea's smiling face frozen in time. The sunlight catches the faded ribbon, the broken chain of the necklace. Everything seems both present and impossibly distant. Mark's gaze meets mine briefly, fleeting and searching, a question hidden behind fear. I feel the tension between us, the unspoken weight of what he's revealing. Every word he utters seems to float in the space above the table, heavy with years of regret. And yet, a part of me recoils. If he's telling the truth, then who placed my wedding ring in Miller's field? I lean forward, resting my elbows on the table, fingers brushing the edge of the box. Why didn't you ever tell me? My voice is low, quiet, but it trembles with something beneath patience, something I can't name. Mark swallows hard. I thought I was protecting you, he whispers. From old wounds, from pain I carried for years. I didn't think it would matter, not like this. He looks down at his hands, still trembling slightly, as if the motion itself might shatter him. The kitchen feels smaller, tighter, the air pressing between us like the weight of decades. I study his eyes, searching for the truth. Remorse? Fear? Guilt? Or a lie meticulously constructed to survive years of silence? The lines around his eyes seem older, heavier, and I wonder if the field claimed part of him long before I arrived. My fingers brush the hidden ring in my pocket again, pressing it into my palm, grounding myself. The question gnaws at me. If he buried the memory of Rhea, why was my ring placed in that field? Was someone else involved? Or is this a cruel twist of fate, linking past and present in ways I can't yet comprehend? The silence stretches. The box between us feels alive, pulsing with memory, grief, and unspoken answers. Mark's eyes flick toward the back door as though remembering a shadow from the past, something unseen but ever-present. I rise slowly, hands still brushing the wooden box, careful not to disturb the fragile remnants inside. The kitchen is quiet again, sun spilling pale light across the floor, and I feel the weight of what he's revealed pressing against my chest. Mark remains seated, staring at the box, his hands still trembling, his face a mixture of relief and fear. I clutch the ring in my pocket, its cold weight grounding me, tethering me to reality amid the storm of half-truths. Something in the field, something in the past, is still unsettled. I know I cannot rest until I understand it fully. The secrets buried in soil, in hearts, in shadows, they are calling me forward. And I will follow, even into the dark corners of memory, even if it means facing truths that were never meant to be uncovered. The sun rises higher, and I step back from the table, the box between us a silent testament to love, loss, and the things we bury alive. The field stretches wide under the pale morning sky, dew settling like frost on the tall grass. I walk slowly, the soft crunch of earth beneath my boots the only sound besides the wind whispering through the stalks. Every step carries memory, the buried ring, the photograph, the weight of questions that have haunted me for weeks. Then I see him. Not a shadow this time, but a man stepping from the tree line, weathered and still, like he belongs to this quiet place. His presence is calm but heavy, carrying a grief that feels familiar in some unspoken way. I pause, unsure whether to approach or flee. And in that silence, I realize this final visit might finally untangle the threads that have haunted both our lives. I stop a few feet away, watching him stand between the grass and the horizon. His posture is slumped, not from age alone, but from years carrying something too heavy to set down. I can see lines etched into his face, tired eyes, a jaw set with quiet sorrow, hands clasped in front as though holding memories rather than a body. The wind lifts the loose strands of my hair across my face, and I blink against the morning light. My heartbeat is loud in my chest, carrying the weight of everything I've discovered, the hidden box, the photograph, Rhea's ribbon, Mark's silent confessions. I clutch the ring in my pocket as though holding on to it might tether me to understanding. I take a cautious step closer, unsure how to begin, unsure how to ask the question that has been gnawing at me for weeks. He doesn't move, doesn't speak. I notice the quiet confidence of someone who has carried grief for decades and knows its weight intimately. And in that moment, I sense that whatever answers I will get, they will not be simple, nor will they bring the closure I thought I wanted. Finally, he speaks, voice low, carried with the kind of quiet that belongs to people who have witnessed too much. "I'm Rhea's brother," he says. His words hang in the morning light, soft but solid, shaping the space between us. I blink, swallowing, unsure what to say, unsure if I'm ready to hear the truths he carries. He steps closer, the tall grass brushing against our knees as he kneels slightly, placing a hand gently on the soil. "I found your ring," he continues, "years ago, in the box Mark kept. I didn't know what to do with it, and then recently, I buried it here, hoping someone, maybe you, would find it." His gaze meets mine, steady but wary, a shared sorrow bridging our distance. The wind moves through the field, lifting the grass around us, and for a moment, the world feels suspended. I feel the cool morning air on my skin, the subtle damp scent of earth rising, grounding me to the truth that has eluded me. He explains carefully, each word deliberate, each pause weighted with memory. He wanted answers too, he says, answers about Rhea, about Mark, about the choices that had left so many lives suspended in silence. I listen, tracing the familiar landmarks of the field, the tree line, the space where shadows used to lurk. It feels like the final piece of a puzzle that has shaped my weeks, my nights, my doubts. As he speaks, I feel a strange clarity settling over me. The truth isn't tidy, isn't easy, isn't villainous. It is human. Grief, love, mistakes, and the desperate need to protect the ones we carry in our hearts. I let my gaze drift to the ground where the ring was buried, imagining the hands that placed it there, the care in the act, the hope that someone would understand. Rhea's brother watches me, quiet now, the weight of decades pressing down on both of us. There is no accusation, no blame, only the shared understanding of loss and love and secrets that grew too large to remain hidden. My chest tightens, a mixture of relief and sorrow swirling together. The wind lifts again, brushing against my cheeks, rustling the tall grass, and I realize that the field itself carries the story, whispered through every stalk, every shadow, every hollow where the past once lingered. I take a breath and look at him, seeing the reflection of what Mark might have been, what grief had made him into, and the choices he had carried silently for decades. The lines between past and present blur, and I understand finally that no single person bears the weight of truth alone. I feel the ring in my pocket, heavy with meaning, and I know that the decision of how to carry the next steps rests with me alone. I stand in the field, the morning light spilling over the horizon, painting the grass with gold. The man who was Rhea's brother nods once, softly, and steps back into the shadows, leaving the field as quiet as it was before he appeared. I feel the wind brush my face, carrying the scent of earth and memory, and I hold the ring tightly, its weight grounding me. The truth isn't simple, it isn't neatly wrapped, but it is human. It is sorrow, it is love, it is mistakes, it is memory. And I realize, as I walk back toward the path that leads home, that the question isn't just about Mark, or the past, or buried secrets. It's about whether what remains can endure, whether a marriage, a life, can survive the weight of what was left unspoken. The field whispers behind me, a gentle, haunting voice, reminding me that some shadows never fully leave, but they can teach us how to step forward anyway.